League in Division 2. In a game broadcast here on ON Radio earlier today, the Villanovans beat Mount Pleasant by a score of 28-0. Now, coming up, of course, we have the Paranormal Show, which was postponed from noontime. That's the Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno. That's coming up here at 3 o'clock. And then at 4 o'clock, right after the Paranormal Show, we'll go back out to Cranston Stadium and listen in as the North Smithfield Mount St. Charles Co-op take on Tiverton for their Divisional High School Football Championship. All right here on ON, AM, and FM. Welcome to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno.
How do you keep a parasite from becoming a poltergeist? If exorcism isn't good enough to deal with a case of possession, where do you turn? And isn't this a surprise? We're on at 3 p.m. instead of noon. But don't love it too much. Next week we'll be back at our noon slot here on WOON 1240 AM and 99.5 FM.
And on that note, welcome aboard to the 819th edition of Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno. I'm Ben, and those outlandish questions came from my co-host, partner in the paranormal, and dad, Paul. And today we offer you an unexpected open line show, as we were preempted by the Woonsocket Villanovans, which congratulations to them.
28-0, not bad.
Yeah, I know, right?
Against Tiverton in Rhode Island, yeah.
Oh, yes. So, anyway, so we have our favorite guest co-host with us today. That's Shane Sirois. So today we welcome your calls. The number is 401-766-1240 from anywhere, or email paul@behindtheparanormal.com, or contact us via Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram.
And again, everything's a little upside down today. Thanks for bearing with us because of the sports coverage here on WON. We're coming to you 3 hours after our usual slot, and our scheduled guest was not able to be with us in any slot because something came up for her, and we will try to reschedule her, Maria DeAndrea, for a later date. So instead, we have an open line show with the man who was always our silver lining.
And that is Shane Sirois. So welcome aboard, Shane.
To your on-air home.
Yeah. Too bad the scheduled guest couldn't make it, but I'm glad I'm here.
Yeah, you go. You're battling the New Hampshire snows in order to get all the way down here. We
terrible
really
weather on the way down here.
Is it actually snowing up there?
Yeah, it was, snowing mix in southern New Hampshire and raining really, really hard to Massachusetts on my way down. But
wow.
we made it. The traffic was great considering.
That's probably because everyone is not as strong-willed as you are to make it all the way down here.
All right. Well, let's begin. We have questions today going from this morning all the way back to 2012. So let's start with one from this morning, or actually yesterday. This is from this is a rather lengthy one, but it's very, very clear. Doug in Texas.
Alrighty.
And if you would.
So Doug writes to us, "Greetings, gentlemen. I don't know if this qualifies as paranormal, but given your experiences in the paranormal meditation and Paul studies in psychology, I was wondering if you might provide some sort of answer. When I was about 6 years old, I was in my backyard contemplating my own consciousness, existence, and the meaning of life, as most 6-year-olds do. While doing so, I had a rather disconcerting experience. It felt as if my mind was expanding beyond my body and even beyond our backyard, almost as if I were growing very large. While this was occurring, I seemed to lose my sense of identity for a brief moment. The best way I can describe entering this altered state of consciousness is to compare it to the feeling one gets after awakening from a vivid dream. While dreaming, you believe that the dream is your everyday life. Upon waking, you realize that your real life, whatever that may mean, is where you are lying in bed, having just awoken from the dream. It was like I had suddenly gained consciousness. Being only 6 years old, I quickly recoiled from this and brought myself back to reality as I knew it. Also, I can't be certain there may have been some other being present while this was occurring. I don't think he/she, or even they, were malevolent, just observing it in a neutral manner. So I guess my question is this: what is paranormal? A product of some form of meditation, or did I temporarily go bonkers for a moment? Thanks, guys, and keep up the good work.
Don't forget, what's the matter with the video?
Oh, no, it's up there.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay, well, you're the producer. That's all right.
Yeah, that's what's. Don't worry.
Okay, all right.
Deep
All right.
breaths.
You know, I'm a father hen. All right, so Shane, what do you think about this?
Well, it's funny. He described something that basically what he described right before I had a near-death experience when I was 10, or it's happened several times. But that state that he gets into, feeling like he's expanding and growing, it's exactly how I felt during those times, where I also would receive messages and information on how to help people going forward in my life, and things that you don't hear from other investigators. It was information that was gifted to me, but prior to that was that feeling of expanding and becoming part of everything, merging with everything and all the energies around me, and almost like I could feel and I could hear the thoughts of everyone all around me. It was strange. So, but basically, right now too, if I get put into a situation where I have to read deeper in where we don't have all the information that we need to kind of diagnose a case, where they have a disturbance going on, I will sometimes put myself into that state where I will expand myself and try, and I can sense everything around me, everyone around me. But the problem with doing that is I end up zapping the people that are around me, and they end up getting really worn down. So
I'm going to move to the other side of the
I don't do it
broadcast booth here.
Oh, okay.
Oh. Okay, cool. Thank you.
But yeah, so I know exactly what he's talking about because I've experienced it throughout my life.
Wow. Ben?
I think it's kind of interesting how he put it as if it's like a waking dream almost. I get it. I have a hard time articulating it, so I think he did a really good job in explaining it because it's super strange, right? So I was actually thinking about this on the way over because I've been having I always have a lot of trouble sleeping. As I've gotten older, weirdly, I've become a lighter sleeper. I don't know how that happens. You'd think it would be the opposite. So I end up waking up a lot, mostly because I have two cats that constantly jump all over us. So so really it's a self-imposed punishment. But anyway, so I've noticed that as I've been sort of kind of keeping track of everything, I was like, I should really keep a dream journal, and you'll see where I'm going with this. Because as I've been kind of paying more attention to them and really doing my best to remember them, I've found that they've changed a lot. And I'm wondering if how as a 6-year-old, kind of like being the unformed rock, as it were, as Lao Tzu I believe would call it, sort of the unchanged block or whatever. Basically, your mind isn't formed in a certain way yet. You don't have preconceived notions about stuff yet, that perhaps this sort of idea of, okay, let's take a look at my surroundings and really see what's going on here, and not, have some sort of assumptions about what's around you. As a 6-year-old, you don't look at a tree and say, oh, okay, well, that's a tree over there. Trees are made of this. They do this. They provide us oxygen. You see a tree and you're like, oh yeah, tree, cool. You don't look at rocks and say, all right, this rock, considering we're in New England and most of the northern portion of North America is, mostly minerals and stuff dropped off by glaciers and stuff. You don't look at a boulder in the woods and say, oh, well, that boulder came from a glacier. That's really cool. As a kid, you're like, oh, cool, it's a boulder. It's a
Can
rock.
I climb it,
Yeah, exactly. You don't really read into things. You think of things simply, and perhaps we lose that the older we get. And the more we take time to stop and look at stuff, perhaps that's really what the moral of the story is here.
Yeah, perhaps. I'd say it's very interesting. Unlike you fellows, I really have not had too many experiences like that. I've had a lot of really amazing dreams while sleeping. There are a couple of exceptions to that. One is communication held during meditation that I never wanted to talk about or write about before, but they're in my new book that came out a few months ago, Dancing Past the Graveyard. But also, probably the closest thing I came was, I suppose you'd call it a waking near-death experience, I guess. It was back, Ben you were like, what, 2 or something, many years ago, I was very ill, didn't realize that I had pneumonia, and I was my heart was fibrillating. I drove myself to the hospital. But before I left to do that, I had a waking kind of a vision, colors I had never seen before, and like a cave with like this huge, like a lizard, a very nice lizard, sort of sitting in the entrance to this. And I'm not big on lizards. I mean, I don't, mind them, but I wouldn't go out of my way to say. And the colors were just, I cannot describe them. And then and then something like slapped my face, and I could almost hear like, "Go to the hospital, stupid." And people often say that's kind of the way female deity, or even maybe for a Christian might say the Virgin Mary, somebody might actually react to your situation. I don't know what it was. So I went to the hospital, and I was there for 8-9 days, for heaven's sake. And okay, so anyway, very interesting. Thank you very much, Doug, for writing that. And we have a caller, and I believe this is Rick from San Francisco. Is it? Rick, welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you. Interesting show today. I like where it's going so far. But I'm calling in because I have a case, and I'd love some help with it. Get your thoughts. And let me just lay the background to it, and then tell you what happened. It happened on October 26th of this year, and there was a group of people having a barbecue in Salida, California. And it was about 10:45 at night, and they were looking to the southeast. And what happened was the wife started seeing like an orb object in the sky, and she was kind of transfixed with it. So she was looking at it and really not saying it, just staring at it, kind of disbelief. And then about a minute later, her husband saw it and started taking some video of it. And that went on for about another minute. And what the object did, it was an orb. It was probably about a mile out, or less. And as it was traveling, it had a course. It seemed to be undulating or pulsing as it was moving forward. And then all of a sudden, it just disappears. Then, about 5 minutes later, everybody's starting to move inside. The husband stays in the backyard, and all of a sudden, a winged craft, a large winged craft, that he couldn't really discern. He just did it from the blocking out of the stars, so it looked almost like a triangle or a V, passed directly over his house. Then the next couple of days, a few things happened to them. One, a couple of people suffered vertigo that week, who hadn't suffered vertigo before, given it's allergy season, but they're not typical vertigo sufferers, to the point where they went to the doctors. And then also, everyone in the group just was zapped of energy, just totally down. It actually took the wife almost another week to recover, and she had a headache every single day until about, I want to say last Thursday or so, whenever it was, the headache finally abated. So I've got this situation where I have an orb that disappears, this giant craft seems to pass overhead, and then there's some ill effects to these people. Any ideas what could be going on here? I will say this: it's got a lot of military bases in the area. There's about 16 in Northern California, and they're smack dab in the middle. And it's kind of an area that's unique in terms of there's a lot of activity that goes on.
Yeah.
But never have I heard anything like that.
All right, I'll give the fellows a chance to respond, but let me just say, and Rick is a show reporter. We have reporters all over the world that we built up over the many years we've been on the air, and very, very helpful, and we do appreciate these reports. Rick, do you think you could prevail upon them? Do you know them?
Just because I'm on their case. I don't know them personally.
Okay. I wondered if they could be prevailed upon to go to our website and fill out the questionnaire. There's a link on top of the website, all the pages that says report an experience, and anyone is invited to do that. And that would give us a lot of data that might be helpful to you, certainly investigating it, and just for the record in general. So if there's any opportunity to do that, or if you could get contact information and we could ask them or whatever, but this is your domain out there, so if you could do that, that'd be great. But so let me give the fellows a chance to respond to that. I'll just start by saying that the initial light seen in the sky, it's possible, even with the pulsing, and that was all white light?
Yeah, it was like a white.
Yeah, all right.
And then it felt like orange, yeah, white.
Oh, orange, all right. Well, that's weird, because I'm thinking...
they reported it as kind of white, but in the video it comes across kind of like an orange.
All right, because I haven't seen the video, but very often when you have landing lights on a small aircraft or even a large aircraft, it'll go off if they're using like ILR or something, and it'll look like it disappears from a distance. But the larger object blocking out the stars is really something very interesting. Shane, what do you say?
Yeah, I mean, I'm more concerned with the symptoms that they're experiencing. But we know electromagnetic fields can create those symptoms. All of them, the headaches, the vertigo, also vibrational frequencies that might be emitted from these crafts can cause the same symptoms. And hopefully not a radiation, but I think more so like an EMF or vibrational type frequency. And then I had one more thing to throw at that. And it slipped my mind, but I'll jump back in. But
all right,
yeah, go ahead.
Ben.
Sure. So I've really been thinking a lot about orbs lately, and I'm going to explain why. The more that people have been reporting them, the less I've thought of them as creatures. And here's where I'm going with this. Every time there's some sort of major paranormal event, whatever it is, Bigfoot appears, right? People will see lights in the sky. What's the difference between a light in the sky and an orb? This is an open question. This is a question to the floor. There's not much, right? It's how we approach it. Yeah. So people have come up to me at various conferences and they're like, "Oh yeah, I got a picture with a lot of orbs here." I don't know why they're from the Midwest, but for some reason they are. And I'm like, "Oh well, cool, that's awesome." What do you think it is? I think it's dead people that lived there at one point in time. I think it's creatures. I'm slowly starting to come to the conclusion that they're more of a byproduct of the phenomena. Now I say this because typically, if orbs are acting on their own, maybe they're creatures that sort of hang around world boundaries, but I'm thinking more of these major events. There's always some sort of runoff, right? Some sort of byproduct that sort of appears in any sort of major chemical reaction, right? So, you combine oil and, a couple other chemicals, borax, whatever, boom, you get soap. But the byproduct of soap is you have a bunch of extra oil if you don't manage to get tallows together. There's always some sort of byproduct whenever you have a reaction of any kind. So perhaps the byproduct of a major paranormal event would be having these sort of physical balls of light, whether it's electrified air molecules creating plasma that kind of appear and then disappear, because it would make sense that, if you light something on fire, it doesn't stay on fire forever, right? So that's kind of the analogy I'm working with here. So if those air molecules are electrified for a short period of time, it would make sense that you would see some sort of visual anomaly before it eventually either moves away, disappears, whatever, because I can't calculate the density of it because we have no idea what it is. So where I'm going with this is this. So I agree with Shane. I believe that the electromagnetic phenomena that appears, it can have a lot of effects, some of which are actually weirdly similar to radiation. Right. And it's really fascinating how each one of these sort of bigger events that affect a large number of people, you will see, those lights, those ubiquitous lights in the sky before something happens, right? And the more that it's been reported, the more I'm coming to the conclusion that, okay, maybe these aren't just, little living creatures. Perhaps it's a byproduct of whatever reaction occurs. Or maybe the byproduct's a living thing. Who knows? And I think it's interesting that the bigger, the more complex the orb, we'll call it for now, is, the more dramatic effects happen to everybody else, right? So whenever any of us is involved in any sort of event that has to deal with a lot of electromagnetic activity, we end up getting a little sick, drained, whatever. But imagine something like this. How sick we would feel after that. Yeah. Something to this magnitude where there's literally an object that blots out the sky.
Rick, how many people were involved? Is he still with us? Okay.
We hear activity. Rick, could you speak closer to the phone?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah. I was just asking. Shane's got a point, but I was just asking how many people were involved in this sighting?
6 people were involved.
6 people. Okay.
Yeah.
Rings a bell, doesn't it, fellas?
Yeah.
Pennsylvania. Yeah. Shane, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was going to also say it's also speculated that some of these craft, if they're UFO or, not of here or whatever, or maybe we have those too, but in order to move through the sky or whatever, or wherever they're moving through, they have to distort space-time, and it's like dropping a bowling ball or putting a bowling ball onto a mattress and then 3 feet away from the mattress, pushing down the mattress, the bowling ball will roll towards you, and so it's speculated that that's how these craft move, so that could certainly have an effect on...
Bob Schrodinger's theory with KK gravitons and all that stuff?
Yeah, there's different versions of it, but yeah, basically. And so that could certainly have an effect on people being around. But with the orbs, too, like Ben was saying, they show up with Bigfoot. They show up with UFO sightings. They show up. We were seeing orbs before we had that that UFO sighting in Pennsylvania. And we're not even sure what that big light mass was that disc came out of. Mm-hmm. That could have been a distortion in space-time that allowed this thing to move into our atmosphere.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, so, but, the balls of light, haunted houses or wherever, they show up everywhere. Same thing with, like Ben was saying, a byproduct. So, same thing with the smells. People that are abducted smell rotten smells, abducted by aliens. In the haunted homes, people call them poltergeists or whatever, you get the rotten smells. And then also Bigfoot, you get the rotten smells. And after I've done, so much research on all this, I think the smell is a product of whatever is allowing these things to come through and interact with us, and I think the smell is a product of that, and not necessarily coming from them. And same, like Ben was saying, these orbs could be the same type of thing.
Sure. Well, Rick, thank you very much for calling in. You are indispensable, and please keep us posted on this, and we'll see if we can't get them to fill out a questionnaire.
I'm going to do it. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate the help.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Why don't we... we've got a minute or two. We're going to take our bottom of the hour break a little bit early, and we'll get into some of our Facebook questions. You're listening to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno, and today our special guest co-host Shane Sirois for Open Lines on WOON 1240 AM and 99.5 FM in New England's very, very wet Blackstone River Valley today. And we will be right back, so stick with us.
Hi, this is Don Brunel inviting you to join us on the Midday Show from noon to 2 every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday with the Super Quiz, great oldies, and interesting guests. That's midday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday from noon to 2.
Hi, I'm Greg Bell, the host of When Radio Was.
I'm Mortimer. Bill. Is that you under that blindfold?
Bill, with this thing on, I can't see who I am.
No, I imagine not. Can't you see anything at all under that blindfold?
On a clear day, I can see the blindfold.
You can?
Yeah.
When Radio Was, shows from the past for today's imaginations.
When Radio Was airs Monday through Friday, right here on ON 1240 Radio at 11 a.m. and 11 p.m.
Okay, well, welcome back to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno here on WOON 1240 AM and 99.5 FM. And special guest co-host today, Shane Sirois, all the way down from the snows of New Hampshire, to be with us a little bit late, 3 hours late today on our slot because of our the wonderful football all around us, but we're glad to be here at any time. So we have open lines today, and why don't we take one question here from Facebook that came in. From Mark in Montreal.
Oh, wow. That's some good alliteration there. Okie dokie.
Well, the next guest, too, was it Lindsay from London?
Oh, yeah.
Well.
We have Paul from Pittsburgh over here. So Mark writes to us, I have listened to the show for many years, and I think your ideas and experiences with poltergeists are really interesting. You believe that every poltergeist is a parasite, but not every parasite is a poltergeist. So I have two questions. I guess we'll start with the first one. How do you keep a parasite from turning into a poltergeist, especially if you are attached, or if you are attached to you, or if it is attached to you?
Okay. We'll go around the robin here to Shane.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of times the parasites will come in and they'll start as, poltergeist activity. Like they'll start moving things around your house, if that's what we're talking about, to see what kind of reaction you're going to have. But typically that's brought on by, like I said, an emotional state of being of the person, and they'll pop in, they'll start doing little things, and if they get the right kind of reaction from you, then they latch on, and they're parasite. But also with the poltergeist activity too, we got to remember that people who have had a close encounter with a UFO will often experience poltergeist activity in their home for up to 2 weeks. I mean, it's a very common thing. So this type of poltergeist can, when we think of poltergeist, we're thinking like, the movie and these haunted houses, but that type of activity can be brought on by a few things, but the parasite, let me see. You believe that? All right. So, but parasitic entities will often, they can feed off of you without you really noticing it, but that's typically not the case. I mean, but it does happen.
It depends on the species.
Yeah.
As I would say. But I wouldn't say that every poltergeist is necessarily a parasite. I mean, there are things that happen. See, again, we love to put labels on things because then we think we understand them. But there can be things that occur. The movement of objects by invisible means isn't necessarily being done by a parasite. Now, a lot of experiments have been done, and as far as I'm aware, I mean, I had a little contact with some of this stuff way back, and the only thing that people have been able to move with their minds, and there is such a phenomenon as that, and it's not a parasite, are very light objects such as pencils. I once saw some psychic roll a pencil across a desk, and there was no wind and everything else. But I've also stood and watched refrigerators levitate and TVs and things like this in situations where there were parasites, in my opinion. So I think it's case by case. And I think the best way to keep a parasite from becoming a poltergeist is to cut off the food supply. We talk about this all the time. Ben and I call it the Peter Pan theory. What did Peter Pan say? Think happy thoughts. So by extension, bring in positive energy, because for some reason that seems to cut off the food supply of negative energy. And it seems like lately our whole society is constructed to just ring the dinner bell for parasites. Because there's a lot of negativity and everybody's divided, and this is stuff that they love to eat. And I'm sure they push some buttons. But in your own home, in your own life, in your own family, and hopefully in your own country, you'll be able to build up some positive energy, and that will keep parasites from becoming poltergeists. I mean, if that's the scenario that lays ahead.
Right, yeah. And then, like I tell people, you have to identify, because usually the person that's the host, the ones being attacked by these parasites, almost every single time they're in an emotional, vulnerable state, and that's what attracts these things, and that's what it initiates it, and that's what continues to feed these parasites. So when we do these investigations, you don't want to pry into people's lives, but if you get good at doing this job, you get people to open up and share these stories with you, and you're able to kind of reverse engineer what's going on with them, and you're always going to find that there's something that's affecting them emotionally, and so to the whole happy thoughts thing, so we have to steer away from our current internal dialogue and put it on a more positive path, and these things they just go away. I even liken it to like a connection between like an emotional frequency. So raise your emotional state, you raise your frequency, and it's like two different walkie-talkies on two different bandwidths that can't communicate anymore.
I like that.
Yeah, and it seems to really just break the connection.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah,
I think that summed it up pretty well.
Yeah, so
I have nothing else to add.
Yeah. All right.
So there's a second part to this.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, this is actually a very good question. And second, why isn't it possible to create a thought form like a tulpa and it becomes a parasite? It becomes a poltergeist. I'm sorry. I've heard you talk about some students that did something like that, where they created a tulpa.
Yeah, that was in Canada. I can't remember the university. It was in Ontario, and they literally decided that it was a psychological exercise. They decided they would concentrate on. They made up a guy who had lived in, I think it was the 17th century, like Shakespearean times, that kind of thing. And they decided they would make the guy up. They would concentrate on, and sure enough, an entity came through just like that guy. So I think maybe the point of the question might be, are parapsychologists necessarily wrong when they say that a poltergeist is created by a kid going through puberty and having the terrible conflicts and the change that's going on. There was some of the Tibetan monks at one point had, and I guess they still do, will, as a spiritual exercise, create a tulpa, which is supposed to be a thought form. I mean, to me, I think it's a parasite that is responding to a chance to eat. But, not necessarily. It could actually be some sort of a projection of one's own personality, a contact with a facet of oneself in some other part of the multiverse, and you make a connection with that and things happen. Anything is really possible. So, I think some parapsychologists might have a point that there may be an agent who creates a poltergeist. I've never seen it, but Shane, what do you think?
I can tell you for sure because I've done it 3 times.
Well, there you have it.
So it's when in my early 20s when I started connecting some dots, and I said, okay, in order to cross-check what my theories are, because it seems like I got it down. Let me actually put those things in place and see if I can create a haunt. And so by way of doing that was creating a story and feeding it to the people that were in the environment, and because we had other natural elements present. One being a river. On the first one I did it, there was a river nearby, but that's always an aiding factor. I won't say the other ones because I want people out there creating the stuff. But so I had these environmental factors that helped that process. I also had people. So in one place of employment, I was a manager in an electronics company in my my mid 20s, and I had these employees working for me who. These Latino women, who were really scared about ghosts and stuff. They knew I did that, and it freaked them out, and so they didn't want to talk about it. So they were kind of, and I know this sounds mean, but everything was fine. No one got hurt or nothing. But I created a story. I said, hey, do you guys hear that people down the hall said that there's somebody died here. There's a ghost, and they see shadow people in the bathroom and doors slamming or banging on the doors and. No, and so just put that thought in their head and created this story, and that sparked their fear, which is what these parasites need, and something did come through, and it was feeding off of that, and I totally believe it was a parasite just coming in to capitalize on that situation, their attention to the subject of a possibility of an interaction, and this parasite jumped in. Hey, they're going to pay attention to me, their thoughts are on me, so here we go, and sure enough, before you know it, the area that I managed, we had racks being pushed over. There were materials just flying through the room. You would hear pounding on the door. The doors would fly open. People would see shadows. And then at the bathroom stalls, the doors would shake. And then other departments started to experience it. So I had to put an end to it. And so I did that. But I did it 2 more times, and in one other business and then one in a residence, and it worked every single time. I had the environmental things present that I needed, and I just needed a person and with a storyline, and to get that into their internal dialogue, get them to pay attention to the possibility of that interaction, get them to be thinking about it all the time, and that's when these parasites will pop in. And so it does work. I won't do that again, but
okay, I'm glad to hear it.
3rd time's a charm.
Whatever we do, don't do it here. All right.
Everybody was fine.
Yeah, but that's good. But I guess the real message is just keep it positive. It's a simple message, not always simple to do in your situation, but keep it positive. Come together with the people you love. Tell them you love them. Don't wait. And friends, whatever, have your supports. That's I think the answer to all positive things in life.
I suppose it's really a fun topic in a kind of weird way. So Gnostics are weird. We know this. They have a really fun idea called archons. And archons are basically creatures that exist, but you give them, they have the ability to be gods, but they only have the ability to be gods if you believe in them. Which is super interesting because, I mean, what's a tulpa, right?
Yeah.
Or like what's a thought form, right? You know, it's basically creating a blueprint for making something god-like. I'm using like there because it's, you know, seeming abilities that mortals do not have. And ultimately, it's the same sort of idea, right? So, I mean, we create these sort of blueprints to kind of fit a pattern that we don't quite understand. And as we sort of muddle our way through our research and kind of come up with different conclusions, well, not different conclusions that are seemingly different, they're not really that different. And it's all stuff that we've known ancestrally throughout our lives, and it's kind of rediscovering that and not being distracted by the surroundings around us that are sort of forcing our attentions away from what's really there.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of my 2 cents on tulpas, poltergeists, and whatnot. That it's stuff we've known about. We know that if we create a blueprint for something will come in, good or bad, or neutral, or whatever, or something that has no morals that we understand at all. Mm-hmm. Because the only moral code we really know are the ones that we've learned ourselves. Mm-hmm. Which is why the idea of morals kind of being the same universally and multiversally scares me.
Yeah.
And what if there are morals we don't know about? What if it's good, quote unquote, to be a parasite, right? Like what
in
if,
their own culture? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, we as humans see other people, other cultures in the world we live in as, oh, that's not right. You know, the morals are all off there. And it's if something is so different between here and some foreign country that believes something different than us, that they believe is morally correct, I mean, how different would it be in a completely different multiverse or different world?
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. That's just something to think about.
No, very, very true. Yeah, and not to belabor this, but there have been a number of cases, particularly in my past, where I've gone to the house and the people have their scenario. They know who it is who's haunting the place. Had to be this guy. It's some relative, and the phenomena will match their expectations. And when I went in and said, I don't believe this, but everything changes. So that's kind of, and then I look back at my conversations in Australia in 1979. The Aboriginal elder who said, "Oh yeah, there's a tradition of cursing people." Which is why it's implied to point, because they would point the bone, as they call it, curse. But it doesn't work unless you believe in it. So, you know.
You have a blueprint.
Yeah, but I actually have cases of people who were cursed by Aboriginal elders and went to the hospital and died.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
I was doing a case, or no, it wasn't a case. I'm actually self-employed remodeler. I own a business, and I was in my early 30s. And, or if not 30 years old, and I was in a property, and I was in the back of the house. And I just started getting this strong feeling, you know, that feeling like there's a presence near you, but it felt so strong, and it felt like all types of different energies mixed into one, and it was just overwhelming. I had to keep looking over my shoulder, and there was a tree line in the back with just one little tiny pathway, and I couldn't see what went back there, but it felt like whatever this thing was standing in front of this pathway. And then I saw, in the corner of my eye, I saw something move, and I look over to the side of the house, and I see this female in a gown, and she smiled at me, and she walked past the corner of the house, so I couldn't see her anymore, and I ran over there, and she was gone. There was nothing there, but I did make direct eye contact with her. And when I have these experiences, no matter what they are, whenever anything supernatural, I get like this buzzy feeling in my body. My whole body feels like it's buzzing, and I had that going on.
Yep.
So when the lady came home, I said, you know what, I just have to ask you this. I said, because this was so bizarre and so strong that you must know something about this. And I told her the story about the energy behind me. This felt like this just big giant beast or something made up of all kinds of different energies, and then that female. And the whole time I'm telling her this story, she's got her hand with her finger pointed up over her lips, you know, and her thumb underneath her chin, and she's just listening intently. And then so when I stopped talking, and this is a very classy lady, nice house. Her husband was an engineer, And so I said, I don't know if that sounds crazy, but I'm telling you, it was very, very real. She goes, why would that sound crazy if I was the one that put them there? She says, come with me, and we go down, and she was like the high priestess of the East Coast of the Wiccan religion, and she brought these protectors, and so through that path, that protective energy that I felt through that path was where she had an outside altar, and it was there to protect, and then the other one was her goddess or something like that, but she brought them, she invoked them to protect her property, and I saw one of them and felt the other one, and it was very, very real.
Well, we have protectors certainly around. It's amazing, some of the stuff I've seen, but no, that's again, not to belabor, but I think that if it is another, even in that situation, or if it's just someone like at one of our ancestral homes in England, there's the Grey Lady that the Earl told us about, who's there. I think there's some connection. Again, these things don't just happen. And when there's interaction like that, and you see, I had a case in Auburn, Mass, one time many years ago. The ghost of the woman looking into the baby's crib and the mother freaking out. Obviously, I think they may, in these circumstances, they may see us the way we see them. How they see us either that way and think we're ghosts ourselves, or they see us as we are in their world. Otherwise, we wouldn't have made the connection if we didn't know them in their own world in some form or another. So she might have looked at you, or somebody might, from across the boundary there, and see you as a relative or somebody who you really are in that way. It's tough to get your mind around it, but okay, we'll get back to that at some point. I want to get to one or two more questions here.
We'll do the best we can.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, this was just a pile of stuff here. We can never neglect our good friend Peter from Bogota, Colombia. Who
he didn't write in last week. I mean, come on.
Well, that's it. We got 2 weeks to make it, so we sent 2 questions. Ben?
Okie dokie. So, Peter writes to us. Let's see. In your recent interview with Ron Rademacher regarding the mystery of the Macintosh stone, Ron said he was going to have sensitives attempt reading of the stone. What happened?
Excuse me. Well, apparently nothing yet, because I did contact Ron after we received his questions and have not heard back from him yet. He is in Michigan, and there was a proposal to take this Macintosh stone, which is a very small carved stone, and you can go back and look at the show. It was a couple of weeks ago, but look through our podcast list and all the different podcast platforms, and you can find it. And he was going to give it to some sensitives to do what is called psychometry. Now, some people can hold an object and they'll know about its history or other people who've held it, that kind of thing. And that has not been done as far as we know yet. But there's a lot of interest in it, and thank you, Peter, for asking. We will report on it when we find out. Okay, and there's a second question from Peter.
And he writes to us, have you gotten reports of orbs with entities inside of them?
Yeah, it's funny, we were talking about orbs.
Yeah, I know.
If you look at the cover of Footsteps in the Attic, my 2002 book, you will see an orb on the cover. And I believe, didn't you take that picture, Shane?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was seeing...
This is back in the 90s.
Yeah, I was seeing a flickering in the corner, and that's what caught my attention. And then I kept seeing what almost looked like a face, but it was coming in, it was dark up there, and it was coming through the darkness, and then it was flickering, and so I took that photo, and we got that.
Yeah, so it's on the cover of the book. But that was a case right here in Woonsocket, Rhode Island, in an old home up in the lovely Harris Avenue area, and the people had the impression I was an old lady who was sharing the house with them. And in the multiverse, that's perfectly possible. And she,
a very annoyed old French woman.
I don't know any details, but they would come down in the morning and find what?
Throw me down the stairs of the ghosts.
Don't make fun of the local audience. Anyway, no, the French word order they don't use anyway. So down in this house was just a beautiful place, but they would come down in the morning and they would find the rocking chair rocking by itself. Nothing really alarming or parasitical or anything like that, but up in the attic, we were with one of our engineering people from University of Rhode Island, and then Shane was there. Ben, you were still a babe in arms, so you weren't with us yet, and a couple of other people, and it was quite interesting. We felt as if something came into the room and swept. You could feel the air, somebody coming in. But in the photo, it does look like an orb with a face in it, of an old woman, all right?
Smiling face.
Yeah, seemingly. And that's entirely possible, I suppose, multiversally. If I heard stuff in my attic, I'd go up and see what it was, too. And maybe that was it. That's our interpretation. But orbs, sometimes there appear to be almost like the nuclei of an atom or something, or a cell. It's very interesting what they are. I mean, Shane, what do you think? I think some of them are living things, others are not. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, even look at I know this is controversial, but the Santilli telescope, you look at some of the captures that they're getting with that around thunderstorms, thunderclouds, I should say, and power plants, and they're getting these cell-looking things in the sky that they're capturing that we can't see with our own eye, but they're humongous,
Yeah.
But they seem to congregate around the places where they could probably power up. Why so many near thunderstorms? Why so many near power plants? There's got to be something to it. But we can't see them with our own eyes, so it's a different light spectrum, but they're there.
Ben speculated about orbs too, byproducts or living creatures of some kind. If you see them in the sky, UFO, or I don't know.
Because sometimes they do seem to have an agenda,
Yeah, you and I have both seen them with the naked eye, and they will act intelligently, semi-intelligently. Ball lightning does the same.
I think it depends on the timeline, right? I think how and when they appear depends on what's going on around it, right? So as we already know, the phenomena is dictated by the participants and the environment. So I think if we look at who are the participants and what is the environment, I think that way we can kind of determine, all right, is it a living thing? Is it a byproduct? What is it? And I think the problem is it's so hard to repeat and to study because it happens so quickly that it's like you don't have time to really process it and say, oh, okay, well, let's figure out what's going on here. It's just like, it's there, it's gone.
Okay. Well, I think we have time maybe for one more very short one.
The shortest ones are always the longest answer.
Carrie from Clinton, Arkansas.
Okie dokie.
Right where the arrow is there. But
Carrie from Clinton writes to us, so are you excited about Season 2 of Project Blue Book or what? I'm going to be honest, I actually haven't even seen it.
No, it hasn't started yet. It starts in January.
No, I haven't seen the first season either.
Oh, you haven't? Well,
I don't have cable, so it's...
Oh, you don't? Okay, well, that makes that easy. All right. Every once in a while, there's still history on the History Channel, and in my personal opinion, this is not it. All right. We had some discussion when that first came out. I know, Shane, we were talking about it, so I was not impressed with the first one. A lot of people were not. I suppose it's good science fiction stories, I suppose, as far as it goes. But I was expecting more accurate history as far as the J. Allen Hynek and Project Blue Book, his work with that. And
docudramas are a slippery slope. Because it's
like,
you're trying to make something interesting out of something it is interesting, but like, you have to turn
everything is interesting.
You have to turn it into entertainment, and that's a dangerous line to walk. How do you draw the line between, okay, so this is kind of cool, I like how this shot looks, versus this is what actually happened.
Yeah.
Like, how do you draw a line there?
Shane?
Yeah, nothing.
No, okay.
I haven't watched this at all. So.
Oh, yeah. I thought you did.
No, right. we were talking about Strange Things or
Stranger
whatever.
Things.
Stranger Things.
Oh, Stranger. Okay, well, I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's the one I started
Ben's
watching.
mom and I'm not a big TV fan, but she and I sat down every Tuesday night back in the first season, and we watched the whole thing through. And I don't know, I just wasn't impressed. But Ben, you went to film school. How do you?
Well, I like to point this out to people at parties because it's literally the only time I ever use any of the media criticism courses I took in college. And documentaries are, you know what's weird? If I say the word documentary, what's the first word that comes to mind?
National Geographic or something.
Well, no, not what it's on, but like what do you think of? Do you think information?
Well, I think nonfiction.
Right. That's the thing. So documentaries are a lie, and here's why. Every form of media starts off with a premise, and it starts off with a point of view, right? So let's use Lord of the Rings. So we view the world of Middle-earth through the eyes of Frodo in the first movie, and then through a couple of different characters' eyes through the rest of it. And we're put in a point of view of a character, and that's how we view it. And that's how good screenwriting is, where you know the point of view you're looking from, and you view the characters and how they develop from whatever point of view is given to you, right? So the thing with documentaries is they start off with a point of view, and the point of view is that of the documentarian. And if there's something that they want to prove, they will find a way to prove it, and they will cut it together in a way where you automatically start from that point of view.
Yeah.
So things like Religulous is a perfect example where, the point of view of the
Bill Mayer?
Yeah, I think so. The point of view is automatically, all right, I'm an atheist. I'm not out to prove anything. I'm not out to look at evidence. I'm out to make people look dumb. That's the point of view that's taken. Or Gettysburg, right? So anything that's done by Ken Burns. I'm out for this point of view. Although he does a pretty good job actually of being relatively objective, but it depends on your point of view.
Yeah.
So you're automatically set in point of view of the timeline of events. So any sort of documentary, you can pick anything, unless it's a nature documentary. Anything that's political or cultural or has something to do with some sort of mystery or war, you're automatically put in the point of a point of view. Except unless it's a nature documentary. Or I'll make that very specific. If it's an animal documentary,
okay.
Because even like science and stuff, you're put in that point of view of how you view what you're viewing.
Okay. Well, on that note, I think we better get to our announcements. Shane, what's going on with you? Let's start with that.
Not a whole lot. I'm just, not a whole lot. I got nothing scheduled till next year. So I'm focusing on my
neither do we. Actually.
Focusing on my business and hopefully get my YouTube channel kicking. Right now I'm just swamped with my personal business, my job, my company. But we're looking to beef up my YouTube channel coming up here soon.
Great. Okay. Very good. We just got the word we have till 4 o'clock. That's when the game begins. However, we will do, as the holidays begin here, we're wrapping up, we have wrapped up our 2019 lecture season, very busy one. And as Shane said, we'll see you on the road next season, beginning with us so far with the New England Parafest in Kittery, Maine in April, and all of our U.S. listeners a very happy Thanksgiving this coming week.
So you can also check out our books, including Behind the Paranormal, Everything You Know Is Wrong, and Behind the Paranormal 2, Bigfoot, Mothman, and Monsters You've Never Heard Of. And now, Dancing Past the Graveyard, Poltergeists, Parallel Worlds, and God. They're available from online retailers and in some stores, but for autographed copies, please visit the online bookstore at BehindTheParanormal.com.
And we have finished loading all of our 2011 shows, CBS and WON, to the major podcast platforms. And we're working back to 2008 because we have trouble keeping them on our own site because of some kind of issue with.
That's why you create mirrors.
We'll talk about that later. Anyway, you can find out at BehindTheParanormal.com, find out about the show and lots of other things around us, and there's a link to our main site there, too, NewEnglandGhosts.com. Ben, what do we have coming up next week?
So next week, December 1st, actually, we have UFOs, Does the Camera Lie? With British researcher and photo expert Jason Gleaves.
Yeah, we'll be back at our noon slot, our usual noon slot, noon to 1, Eastern time next week.
Yes.
So we'll leave you this afternoon, and I guess you probably...
We got time.
Do we? All
Just
right.
say the quote.
All right. Quote that blends romance and the multiverse from American journalist, actress, and comedian Gabby Dunn. There had to be one universe, just this one, where we didn't end up together. Here and now, it just happens to be it. I'm Paul Eno.
And I'm Ben Eno. And thanks for joining us on our great cosmic journey, and we will catch you...
And don't forget Shane Sirois.
Oh, yes, and Shane Sirois. We'll catch you next time on Behind the Paranormal.
Return to this radio frequency 167 hours from now for another edition of Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno. WOON
to
Woonsocket.
Cranston Stadium for high school football on ON, AM, and FM. The Division IV title game is underway as they started before the top of the hour. Marty Crowley, Tony Girton coming to you from Cranston Stadium, as we just alluded to. North Smithfield fumbled the opening kickoff, and now Tiverton has a first down at the Northman Mountain St. Charles Co-op 13-yard line, Tony, and not the way you want to start if you're the Northman.
Marty, a big mistake on the opening kickoff. North Smithfield, up man, received the ball, a short kick,